Welcome back to Piece of Work, a Dayforce podcast. This past season, we have asked leaders some tough questions about how AI is reshaping work. But in this special bonus episode, we asked some of our toughest yet, namely, what's the true cost of leaving people behind? And more importantly, who owns that cost? This episode continues my conversation with Sal Khan, founder and CEO of Khan Academy. If you want the full conversation, be sure to check out episode 8 of season 1. For now, here's our focused conversation on leadership, accountability, and reskilling. There's certainly no shortage of organizations of all sizes and scopes leaning in to see where they can deploy AI in all sorts of different ways. There's a real concern of what it's actually really going to take to sort of unlock this next wave of human potential. There's going to be a lot we're going to have to work through there.
I'm a big believer in capitalism and free markets. It's not obvious that it's going to happen naturally through the markets. And if it doesn't, you could get into some form of, people are getting left out of the economy. It is going to be some types of, software engineers and mid-level managers. I actually think this is a moment where if we don't step up some way, I'm even thinking, the industries that are benefiting from AI, which is almost all industries, should we be putting 1% to reskilling and creating pathways? Because if industry doesn't do it, in about 5 to 10 years, you're going to have major political backlash. And then they're going to have regulations against automation. They're going to overtax potentially these industries, et cetera, which I think no one wants. So it is something that I'm very worried about.
I mean, do you have your team sort of working through some of what that reskilling might look like? Are you starting to actually frame that up? There's a certain roles, number of roles that, pretty clear in a couple of years' time, whatever it is, that role is going to be gone or just very, very different. Are you actually structuring that reskilling?
We don't have a strong enough opinion yet on for sure, this stuff's going to be automated and they need these skills. We don't know those things yet. I have hunches. The areas of growth, as I said, I think they're going to be any industry that's, let's call it in the human care. So I think daycares, schooling, elderly care, therapists. You're also going to have AI therapists and all of that. But I think the human element of it is always going to have some value. I think hospitality, I always point out, there's already cheaper ways of getting good food than going to a restaurant. But we pay a premium to go to a restaurant. We'd rather go to a crowded restaurant than an empty restaurant, even though we might not get our food as quickly. We like to see a line out the door of the restaurant. Oh, that's the one I want to go to. We want to have that conversation with the waiter or the waitress. The trades, electricians, plumbers, contractors, there's a shortage there. We need to hire more. I don't think even with the robotics revolution that's about to happen, there's too much problem solving and unique things that you have to do. Sales, things where you're really having to deal with the human element. Those are going to be growth areas.
I suspect many organizations aren't necessarily thinking exactly in that way. As you are to say, hey, let's commit. To some degree, that's a percentage of time, energy, investment, et cetera, to say, we don't know what the evolved roles are for some set of roles that we know are going to change. But hey, let's set up to figure it out, right? Let's figure out what the structure is for reskilling. Let's figure out, how we deploy that.
My view is in the 2-year time frame, you are going to see entire workflows that might be able to take on 50, 60, 70% of some teams' work. So we want to be a little bit prepared going into that and make it a conversation, because no one knows the right answer here. There's people like me who give a point of view, but no one knows the right answer. So we just have to all be on top of it, be transparent, make it a conversation, being very transparent and truthful, but also humane. Hopefully not just lip service humane, but actually humane, but saying, look, there is going to be change in the next 2-3 years, but our intent is not to just that person, we don't need them anymore. They're out. It's okay, how do we see that coming? How do we make sure that they aren't surprised one day and that they have a chance to reskill? And look, we think at Khan Academy, there's a lot of places where people might be able to shift into over the next, it's not overnight, it's over the next 2-3 years. But if you are an organization, we're no, we just have to lower our cost structure as much as possible. The humane thing to do, and I think this is also good for your culture, is, okay, how do we help those people improve their marketability in the broader world?
With more of that kind of framework, I think also more people would increasingly feel more of the potential here rather than, the worry. I mean, if everyone was a bit more oriented to, right, like, okay, if I'm going to reskill, like what can I unlock that I just, just wasn't even in consideration when I started 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years, whatever. So I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah. I do see a lot of this start to happen organically. There's some early adopters, but a lot of organizations now, their knowledge repositories are all getting slurped up by the AIs. A lot of the big tech companies that do the email and do your documents and do your drives, and they're also doing the models. And so they're inserting this here and there. Just last week, there was a receipt. It was an Uber receipt for a business trip that I had to make to Mexico. And it just showed up in like about 10 seconds. That was a huge win. There's so many tools now, and you can imagine if you're a new employer, especially actually if you're an existing employee and you're afraid to ask the quote dumb question, you can now ask, what does this acronym means? And all your whole corporate, or hey, is there a document that explains this more? And it'll find someone wrote a white paper about it 3 years ago, and you can see it. So I think it's hugely valuable.
What do you think enterprise learning and development teams can learn in this age of AI from what you've been able to accomplish at Khan Academy?
I don't think it's anything, mind-blowingly new concept, but I think Khan Academy, even before AI, showed that there was definitely a lot of demand for people who wanted to take agency of their learning themselves and fill in their gaps and learn. There's a lot of tools out there, even before AI, that have essentially, give you your homework answers, et cetera. But Khan Academy is always anchored on, we're going to help you learn the concepts and master it. And we haven't seen people move away from that. And that's even more true in the work environment. So even before generative AI, if you can give people ways to express that agency, their ambitions, to learn on their own, and then to prove what they know to others, I think that's powerful. We have a sister nonprofit I started called schoolhouse.world. I started during the pandemic. It's a peer-to-peer learning platform where people can tutor each other. And we have ways of certifying what you know so that you're qualified to tutor. We now have a program where we're taking high school students and we pair them with kids with opposing points of view on tough issues. And then they have dialogues, and then they can give each other feedback on how well they did it. In this world of AI, everyone's gravity, and we even did this at Khan Academy, is like, let's put an AI agent on this thing. Let's make an AI that can answer people's questions. Let's create an AI tutor. We've done all that stuff. And people should be thinking about that. But I actually think the really interesting place is, how can we leverage the human element now within our organizations to transcend what the AI can't do? I've been talking to a couple of very large companies about, would they want to do a schoolhouse.world type platform within their organizations where people can say, hey, I'm certified. I know how to do this. I'm a level whatever product manager or HR thought partner, whatever it is. And you can see that people are attending their sessions, and it organically happens. It doesn't even have to be things that you have to design. You could just kind of say, here are the things that the organization would like, but people voluntarily go up there and say, hey, I want to be able to share my knowledge here. People go to it. They have a reputation that builds, and then that could be a factor in their promotions. I mean, if someone can communicate, highly rated tutor, they know the material, that's a leader there. That's a manager there. And it almost organically happens, as opposed to doing a top down of like, who needs to know what? And it amplifies the human element as opposed to just AI agents.
That's so much goodness, Sal, for us to take away. So thank you for this chat. Thank you for being on the podcast with us. And, ton to take away.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
I really enjoyed my conversation with Sal. He spent years thinking about how AI can transform learning for the better. But he's also clear-eyed about what might happen if organizations don't invest in reskilling their existing workforce. It's not just about workers needing to take responsibility for their own skills. Learning and reskilling has become an area of real enterprise risk that spans culture, trust, and performance. And like any risk, someone in your organization needs to own it. If you'd like to hear more of Sal's thinking, check out episode 8 of season 1 for the first part of our conversation. I'm Eric Glass, and this is Piece of Work, a Dayforce podcast. If you've liked the show, be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.